Ever feel like some people just drain the energy right out of you? Ugh. It can be tough to navigate those tricky relationships, especially when negativity starts creeping in.
Yeah, it certainly can. And sometimes it feels like, certain patterns keep popping up.
Exactly, like you're running into the same type of difficult person over and over again.
Hmm.
That's why today we're diving deep into this source, how to ignore people. It lays out 6 types of negative people you might encounter, and more importantly, how to handle them.
I think what's fascinating here is that while everyone's unique, these archetypes can really help you recognize those recurring patterns and, give you some tools to deal with them effectively.
Okay, let's unpack this. The first type is the hopelessly hostile drama queen. It's giving major soap opera vibes.
Right. Think of the person who thrives on chaos, always in a crisis, constantly needing to be rescued, and they can be incredibly charming, pulling you into their drama.
Oh, I know the type. They suck you in with flattery, making you feel like you're the only one who understands them. But then the moment you don't play along, watch out.
Yeah, exactly. It's a roller coaster of emotions. And the source makes a really interesting point. Um, Research suggests that this drama-seeking behavior might actually be linked to underlying trauma or even genetic predispositions.
That's a bit mind-blowing. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but it gives you a whole new perspective. So how do we handle these drama queens without getting swept away in the storm?
Well, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. You have to set clear limits on your time and energy. Maybe you limit contact or decide you're only available during specific times.
So dodging those "how are you feeling"
Yeah.
questions that are basically an open invitation to an emotional marathon.
Exactly. Don't feed the drama. And the source emphasizes this. Don't reward the behavior with attention. Focus on your own work and politely disengage.
And make sure to prioritize some serious self-care afterward. Don't let their negativity linger.
Yeah, a walk in nature, a good book, whatever helps you shake it off. Sometimes, for your own well-being, distance might be the healthiest option.
That makes sense. You can't control their behavior, but you can control how you react. It's actually quite empowering. Now, the next type is the person you failed to please 100 times. Have you ever dealt with something like that? I think we all have at some point.
It's that feeling of constantly bending over backward for someone who never seems satisfied. You keep thinking, if I just do this one more thing, but the goalposts keep moving.
It's exhausting. And the source highlights something really important here. It says this need to please often comes from a place of fear, insecurity, or wanting to avoid conflict.
That's right. It's a pattern that can leave you feeling drained and unappreciated. And it actually ties into some fascinating psychological theories like attachment styles, how our early relationships shape our behavior in adulthood.
So how do we break free from this constant need to please?
The source suggests starting with self-awareness. Ask yourself, why do I feel the need to please this person? What's driving that behavior? Once you understand the root, you can start to assess your priorities. Do you really want to do what they're asking, or are you just trying to avoid their disapproval?
That's such a key point. It's about knowing your own needs and being okay with setting boundaries.
Exactly. Learning to say no is a game changer. You don't need to over-explain. A polite but firm no thank you is enough. And don't be afraid to voice your own preferences and needs. You deserve to be heard.
Now, this next type, the naysayer, this one hits a nerve for me. Have you ever been excited about something only to have someone immediately pour cold water all over it?
Ugh, yes. Naysayers can be incredibly destructive to your dreams. Their negativity can become a self-fulfilling prophecy if you let it.
It's like they plant those seeds of doubt and suddenly you start second-guessing everything. Remember that Gandhi quote? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
I love that quote. It speaks to the perseverance needed to push past negativity and achieve your goals.
It's so inspiring. Okay, so how do we silence those naysayers without letting their pessimism drag us down?
The source suggests a few interesting tactics. One is redirection. You can politely point out that you're not seeking their opinion and suggest they focus on their own lives.
I like the idea of giving them false credence, telling them you'll consider their thoughts and get back to them, but of course, you never do.
A classic. And if they persist, sometimes the best approach is to meet their objections head-on with facts. Arm yourself with evidence that supports your approach.
And sometimes I've found that silence can be the most powerful weapon. Just completely ignoring their negativity can be incredibly effective.
It can be. But sometimes, unfortunately, especially if their negativity is chronic and toxic, you might need to create some distance, even if it's family.
It's sad, but true. Sometimes your well-being depends on it. Okay, let's move on to the manipulator. This one feels extra tricky because it can be so subtle.
Manipulators are masters of disguise. They can be incredibly charming and persuasive, making it tough to spot their tactics.
What are some of those subtle ways you've noticed manipulators try to exert control in relationships?
Well, they often put their needs above everyone else's, exploit weaknesses, and pressure you for immediate responses, making you feel like you have to make a decision on the spot.
It's like they're always playing some kind of emotional chess game.
Exactly. And the source makes a crucial point here. Avoid self-blame. It's not your fault they're manipulating you.
That's a great reminder. It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking you're the problem.
Right. Remember, they're creating the problem, not you. A good strategy is to put the focus back on them. Ask questions like, does that seem reasonable to you? It can help them see how their demands might be unfair.
Time is also a powerful tool. Don't give in to their pressure for an immediate answer. Tell them you need to think it over.
Absolutely. And here's a red flag to watch out for. If you notice someone behaving drastically differently around different people, that's a major warning sign. Protect yourself.
Okay, 2 more types to go. Next up is the stubborn one who wants you to be someone else.
This one is all about growth and change. We all evolve, but sometimes people get stuck on who we used to be.
It's like they have this fixed image of you in their minds, and they refuse to acknowledge who you've become. I imagine this applies to ourselves, too, when we can't let go of past mistakes.
You're right. That's a really insightful point. We can be our own harshest critics, holding ourselves back with outdated perceptions.
So how do we break free from these limiting perceptions, both from others and from ourselves?
The key, the source argues, is to let go of opinions that don't serve you. Remember, you can't control what others think, but you can control how you internalize it.
I've heard that called choosing your battles. Sometimes it's better to let go and focus on what matters.
Exactly. And remember, it's better to be disliked for who you are than loved for who you're not.
Such a powerful message about authenticity. Speaking of authenticity, the last type we're covering today is the unforgiving friend.
This is the person who constantly dredges up past mistakes, refusing to let go and move on.
We've all messed up at some point. It's part of being human.
Exactly. Holding on to those past transgressions only hurts everyone involved.
So how do we deal with an unforgiving friend, or even with our own inability to forgive ourselves?
Forgiveness is a powerful act of self-love. The source suggests starting by forgiving yourself.
Because if we can't forgive ourselves, how can we expect others to forgive us?
Precisely. It's about recognizing that we're not perfect, learning from our mistakes, and extending ourselves grace so that we can move forward.
Okay, wow. We've covered all 6 types of negative people. That's a lot to process. Where do we go from here? It's interesting to think about all this in the context of building a more positive life. It's not just about avoiding negativity. It's about actively cultivating positive relationships too.
That's a crucial point, I think. The source focuses on minimizing negativity.
Mm-hmm.
But what's implied is that by doing so, you create space for more positive connections to flourish.
It's like clearing out the weeds in your garden to make room for the flowers to grow.
Exactly.
So if we're spending less time on these energy-draining relationships, what are some ways to actually cultivate the positive ones?
Well, think about the people who make you feel energized and excited about life. Your cheerleaders, your confidants, the ones who inspire you. Those are the relationships worth investing in.
And research backs this up, right? Positive relationships aren't just nice to have. They actually have a huge impact on our well-being.
Absolutely. Studies have shown that people with strong social connections tend to live longer, have better mental and physical health, and are even more resilient when facing stress.
That makes so much sense. When you have a supportive network, you don't feel so alone in facing challenges. It's like having a built-in cheering squad.
Exactly. And there's a fascinating physiological element to this. Positive interactions release those feel-good hormones like oxytocin and dopamine, which boost our mood and overall health. It's like a happiness cocktail.
Okay, so we've talked about the types of negative people to watch out for and the importance of positive relationships. But how do we actually put all these insights into practice? What are some tangible steps we can take?
Well, it all starts with awareness. Just like we've been discussing, we have to be able to recognize those negative patterns in our relationships.
And then we can start using the strategies we've outlined. Setting boundaries, saying no, redirecting negativity. It's about taking control of those interactions rather than letting them control us.
And remember, it's a journey, not a quick fix. It takes time and conscious effort to shift those dynamics. But with persistence, we can create healthier, more fulfilling relationships.
Something that really resonated with me in the source was the emphasis on self-care. It's so important to replenish our energy after dealing with those difficult people. It's
Mhm.
like putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others.
You're absolutely right. It's so easy to get caught up in the drama and forget to take care of ourselves.
So what are some of your go-to self-care practices, the things that help you recharge?
For me, it's all about finding those pockets of peace and quiet. It could be a walk in nature meditation, or just curling up with a good book. Creating that space for rejuvenation is essential.
I love that. I'm a big believer in the power of nature to soothe the soul. Being out in the fresh air, surrounded by greenery, it's like hitting the reset button.
And never underestimate the power of good night's sleep. It's crucial for managing stress and maintaining emotional well-being.
Oh, sleep is my superpower. When I'm well rested, I feel so much better equipped to handle whatever life throws at me.
And let's not forget the power of positive self-talk. The way we speak to ourselves has a massive impact on our mood and self-esteem.
It's so true. It's easy to get stuck in those negative thought loops, but we have to consciously challenge them and replace them with positive affirmations.
Exactly. Focus on what's right, celebrate your strengths, and give yourself credit for all the amazing things you do. Be your own cheerleader.
And remember, it's okay to ask for help. If you're struggling with difficult people or overwhelming emotions, reach out to a therapist, counselor, or a trusted friend. You don't have to go it alone.
Seeking support is a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows self-awareness and a commitment to your well-being.
This brings up an important question that I think many of us have pondered. What are some of the red flags that signal a relationship might be toxic?
That's a great question. It's crucial to be able to recognize those warning signs. One clear indicator is consistently feeling drained, belittled, or disrespected after interacting with someone.
It's like they suck the life out of you, leaving you feeling depleted and deflated.
Exactly. And if you constantly find yourself walking on eggshells, afraid to speak your mind for fear of upsetting them, that's another major red flag.
You lose yourself in the relationship.
Right,
Your authentic self gets buried under the weight of trying to please them.
precisely. And if you're always giving but never receiving, that's another sign that the relationship might be out of balance. It's like a one-way street.
And sometimes a relationship might not be blatantly toxic, but simply no longer serves you. People change, we grow, and it's okay to recognize when a connection no longer aligns with who we are.
You're right. It's about recognizing that sometimes letting go can be an act of self-love. And ending a relationship doesn't have to be a dramatic, explosive event.
So how do you navigate those situations where it feels like it's time to move on, even if it's difficult?
Sometimes it's as simple as gradually distancing yourself, limiting contact, and prioritizing relationships that bring you joy. It's about choosing peace over drama.
You're essentially making a conscious choice to invest your energy where it's reciprocated and appreciated.
Exactly. And remember, you deserve to be surrounded by people who love and support you for who you truly are, flaws and all.
What a beautiful reminder. It's about finding your tribe, the people who get you, accept you, and encourage you to be your best self.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about understanding the power we have to shape our own lives.
By choosing who we let in, by setting boundaries, by prioritizing our own well-being, we create a more positive and fulfilling existence.
It's a journey worth taking, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's about taking ownership of our happiness and creating a life that truly reflects who we are.
And remember, it's never too late to start. Every single day is a fresh opportunity to make choices that align with our values and our vision for ourselves.
I love that. So what are some practical steps we can take to actually cultivate more positive relationships? Because I think that's something we could all benefit from.
The foundation is mindfulness. It's about being aware of the energy we bring to our interactions. Are we approaching others with kindness, empathy, and a genuine desire to connect?
Because negativity breeds negativity.
Right.
If we come in with suspicion or judgment, we're likely to get the same in return.
Exactly. And being a good listener is key.
Yeah.
Truly listening to what others have to say without interrupting or trying to steer the conversation.
Active listening is such a valuable skill, and it shows the other person that you genuinely care about what they have to say.
Don't be afraid to express your appreciation either. Let the people in your life know how much you value them. A simple thank you can make a huge difference.
Small gestures can have a big impact. And one thing to remember, building strong, healthy relationships takes time and effort. It's not an overnight process.
It's like nurturing a garden. You have to tend to it consistently, water it, weed out the negativity, and watch it grow.
Such a perfect analogy. And it's important to celebrate those small victories along the way, the spontaneous coffee dates with friends, the heartfelt conversations with loved ones, even just a shared moment of laughter.
Those little moments of connection are what make life so rich and meaningful.
This conversation has been incredibly insightful. It's empowering to realize that we have more control over our happiness than we often
Me
realize.
too. It's a reminder that even amidst chaos and negativity, we have the power to choose joy, connection, and growth. What's fascinating is how this all connects to a concept called emotional contagion. Have you ever noticed how being around someone in a good mood can lift your spirit?
Oh, absolutely. It's like their positive energy is contagious.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the opposite is also true. Being around negative people can drain your energy and bring you down.
Which reinforces the importance of choosing our company wisely.
We need to be mindful of the emotional environments we expose ourselves to.
It's almost like creating a protective bubble around ourselves, right? A shield against negativity.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
It's about setting boundaries and being selective about who we let into our inner circle.
And it's not selfish to prioritize our well-being. It's actually essential if we want to show up as our best selves in the world.
We can't pour from an empty cup. We have to take care of ourselves first so that we can then extend that care and compassion to others.
I think it's important to acknowledge that this journey of cultivating positive relationships isn't always easy. It's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Absolutely. It takes work awareness and courage. There will be times when we stumble, fall back into old patterns, or doubt ourselves.
But the important thing is to keep going, to keep learning, growing, and striving for those connections that truly bring us joy.
And remember, it's okay to ask for help along the way. We don't have to do this alone.
We're all in this together, navigating the complexities of relationships and figuring things out as we go.
And that's part of what makes it so beautiful, right? The shared human experience of connection, growth, and the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely. So to wrap up this part of our conversation, what's one question you'd like to leave our listener with as they continue to explore this idea of positive relationships?
That's a great question. So take a moment to reflect on the relationships that bring you joy. Who are the people who make you feel seen, heard, and valued?
And once you've identified those people, how do you, go about nurturing those relationships?
Well, I think it's all about being intentional. Reach out, express your gratitude, make time for shared experiences. Those connections are, I think, the foundation of a truly happy and fulfilling life.
Yeah, it's like making a conscious decision to invest in your happiness. And, as we've been talking about these different types of negative people and how to deal with them, it struck me that self-awareness is such a crucial element in all of this.
I absolutely agree. Self-awareness is the key that unlocks everything else. Without it, we're likely to keep repeating those same negative cycles, attracting the same types of people, getting stuck in the same draining dynamics.
Yeah, it's like we're on autopilot, reacting unconsciously to whatever comes our way.
Right. But once we become aware of those patterns, both in ourselves and in the people we surround ourselves with, we can start to make different choices.
Yeah, we can choose to set boundaries, say no when we need to, and walk away from relationships that no longer serve us. And on the flip side, we can choose to invest in relationships that bring us joy, support our growth, and make us feel truly alive.
It's incredibly empowering to realize that we have the power to shape our own reality. We're not just passive bystanders. We have agency in creating the life we want.
It's like taking the reins and steering the horse, rather than letting it run wild. And it's a journey, not a destination. We're constantly evolving, learning, and refining our approach to relationships.
That's the beauty of personal growth. It's an ongoing process. The key is to stay curious, stay open, and keep striving for those connections that make us feel whole.
And to remember that we're not alone in this. We're all figuring it out together.
That's right. It's part of the shared human experience. We all crave connection, growth, and happiness. And the more we can support each other on that journey, the better.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into how to ignore people, I want to leave our listener with a final thought. What's one small, actionable step they can take today to start cultivating more positive relationships in their lives?
I would say start by reflecting on those relationships that already bring you joy. Who are the people who make you feel seen, heard, and valued? Reach out to them, express your gratitude, and make time for shared experiences.
It could be as simple as a phone call, a text message, or just like a spontaneous coffee date. It's about making those connections a priority.
Because those connections are the threads that weave together a beautiful, fulfilling life. And remember, you deserve to be surrounded by love and support. You deserve to experience the joy of meaningful relationships. So go out there and create it.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking those positive connections, keep learning, and keep growing.